Hello and welcome to Up Your Assets, a financial podcast that provides educational information. Nothing in this podcast is meant to provide individualized advice. Further, none of the guests of Up Your Assets pay any fee to appear. Any comments by our guests are their own and not necessarily the opinion of Up Your Assets. That said, today's guest is Emery Ellinger, who is CEO of Aberdeen Advisors, which is based in St. Petersburg, Florida. Emery holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics from Washington and Lee University, and prior to forming Aberdeen Advisors, Emery earned his business and financial expertise as a banker, corporate advisor, and president of several companies. Helping so many others develop their wealth, he decided to step out and become an entrepreneur himself. He's developed a 6-step plan to guide business owners towards a successful merger or acquisition. He specializes in representing companies with annual revenues in the 10 to 100 million or more range, with owners who wish to sell within 1 to 2 years. He has a great team and an industry that typically has successful transactions about 20% of the time. Aberdeen Advisors sports a success rate of 83%. Emery, welcome to Up Your Assets.
Thank you, Ray. Glad to be a part of this.
Well, it's good to have you here. We're going to talk a little bit about how to get your company all set up for a sale at some point. And obviously, a goal for most entrepreneurs. So before we get started, tell us about Aberdeen Advisors and what it means to be a merger and acquisition firm.
Yeah, great question. So as you said in your intro, I sold 3 marketing businesses in Atlanta. And during that process, the lawyer said, we're going to do a reverse triangular C structure. And I was like, of course we are. What else would we do? And the point of that, and I could give many other examples, I knew a lot about marketing, but I knew nothing about selling a business. And that's so typical of today's business owners, where they know a lot about their industry, but not really much about selling a company. So our firm is made up of former business owners that have built and sold their companies. And instead of laying on the beach, want to help. We're very mission oriented, want to help other business owners that want to get a transaction done and successfully sell their business. So we are a very, very experienced team of people with knowledge in a lot of different industries. And yeah, we're fortunate to be one of the top firms in the Tampa area and in Florida.
Oh, that's great. Emery, what was that again? That reverse, what was it?
Yeah, reverse triangular C structure.
Was that a play in football or a play in business?
Yeah. I didn't know either, Ray. So.
Well, Emery, how does one find a competent and ethical advisor in the acquisition and merger space?
Yeah, there are a lot of people in the industry, and there's investment bankers like Goldman Sachs for really large public companies and the Ubers and DoorDashes of the world. There are M&A firms, merger and acquisition firms. We're selling, and that's what Aberdeen does. We're selling pretty large companies, trucking, HVAC, 120 employees, hundreds of employees. There's the business broker world, which is, smaller companies. And then what a lot of business owners, they're do-it-yourselfers and want to do it themselves. But I would say the first thing is to talk to people like you, talk to lawyers, trusted wealth advisors, financial people that understand the industry, and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my business internally, externally. Who should I talk to? Well, first, get your financial plan in order. But do I need CPA help? Yes. Do I need attorney help? Yes. Do I need a intermediary, such as a merger and acquisition firm? Yes. And then depending on what industry, where your company is located. But I would start by getting a referral from a trusted advisor that they know. And obviously you can go on Google and search and get 15 firms, but I would go to the Rays of the world and say, Ray, who should I talk to?
Well, I guess it takes a village in going through this whole process. One of the things that strikes me is, as an entrepreneur myself, and having a lot of clients who are business owners, the owner always has a higher view of the value of their business than often a buyer might. And so where does one go about, if you're an owner, to get an idea what's a valuation of my firm? What is that business really worth, so that I'm not out there pie in the sky?
Yeah, that is probably one of the most critical things before you start, is to do that, is go to your CPA to do it, have a valuation done, go to a firm like ours. We do that as part of our process. And we'll say, Ray, we think we could sell your company between $6 and $8 million. That's way too little. Okay. We think the market's going to be 6 to 8. You think it's higher. Here's what you can do to, make your company worth more. So, but I would start with a valuation company, a CPA firm, or a firm like ours, and they're typically going to charge, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, or even more for a valuation. But that gives you a third party independent view of what your company is worth. And it's much better to do that on the front end in your planning process than to do it when you've got offers on the table and you think you should be getting a lot more for the business. So that's one of the first things that we would recommend to a business owner.
Well, selling a business is a lot like, to me, when I talk to our business owners, like selling people's house. They say, well, all the houses on our block are selling for $1.5 million, but mine's got this, it's got that, it's got this,
Right.
and mine's going to be worth a whole lot more. And of course, that's how we look at our businesses, because we're really, we're proud of what we built. And
Sure.
but it is important to have a good idea as to what the business really is worth, and to be grounded in that as you go into the negotiations. So,
Absolutely.
talking about the negotiations for a moment, Emery, is that something you interface with the potential buyer on? Is it something that the business owner does with the entire team? How does that part of the process work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you hire a firm like ours, merger and acquisition firm, we're going to run that process for you. We want to give you a buffer between the buyer and the seller, to take out the emotions and also make sure we've got, really clear communication about the terms and conditions. So what we would do is bring multiple buyers to the table, create a mini auction that is going to deliver the highest price for our sellers. And then hopefully we're sitting with the business owner saying, we've got 5 offers. Here's an all cash offer. It's the lowest amount, but it's all cash. Here's an offer that's cash and an earnout. Here's an offer that's cash and stock, So we would handle those negotiations. And it's not just about the money. That's a big part of it. It's about the terms and conditions. And it's also about culture. And a lot of people end up, took this offer and they completely ruined the business. And even though the seller got the most amount of money, they look back and said, I wish I'd never sold to that group. So we try to be great matchmakers, as well as, getting them the highest price and best terms and conditions. But to answer your question, we would run that process, handle the negotiations, for our seller, and then we bring in legal counsel, our seller's legal counsel and CPA to, refine that offer so that it's, we've covered all the legal bases, and it's the most tax efficient structure for our business sellers.
Right. So, is it best for me to sell externally to an outside buyer, or am I better off to sell to my employees? Or maybe I've got some family members in the business. What kind of different dynamics for each of those, and what is the best alternative?
Yeah, and we start with the seller. Okay, Ray, what do you want? If you sell your business, what do you want? So that's where we start, because a lot of them, and I'll give you an example. We had a mother and father that wanted to sell to their two sons. I mean, the father was like, I'm selling this business to the sons. I did a valuation. We went and met with them. The valuation was $5 million. The mother and father said they would be willing to sell it for $1 million. Even though it was worth 5, they'd sell it for $1 million. I went to the sons and said, hey, your mother and father are willing to sell this to you for $1 million over 10 years. Basically, they didn't have to write a check. The company was going to fund it. They looked at me and said, we would never pay that much for this business. So I give you as an example, but we started with the sellers. What do you want? It did not end up in they did not end up selling to their sons. And then a couple of years later, they said, hey, the sons don't want to buy it. I was like, yeah, that's what I told you. And then we ended up selling it to a third party. I just did a company. He was going to sell it to his junior partner. The junior partner just couldn't sleep at night if he had to get a bank loan. So we ended up selling it to a big private equity backed company. So it just really depends on what that seller wants and what's going to achieve those goals. We have people that say, I'd never sell to a competitor. Okay, we won't sell it to your competitor, but they may pay the most.
Yeah.
So we have that, and I call it kind of that consulting sounding board with the owner, before we develop that strategy of who we're going to go to sell it. And that's so critical.
Well, you go back to the sons, a willing buyer and a willing seller arriving at a mutually agreeable price.
Right.
So a great example of where those dynamics don't work necessarily
Right.
all the time.
Right.
Well, you were talking about buyers. Let's talk a little bit about the different kind of buyers that might be involved. Private equity, you mentioned, owner operator, family office, competitor is another good example. And often when I'm advising business owners who are going to be in the business for
Right.
an extended period of time still, and a question of, well, who would buy your business if you won? I never talk about getting hit by the Mack truck. It's always that you win the lottery. Now you got to sell your business. Um, Often it's the competitor, and working with a competitor in a friendly arrangement of a buy-sell agreement in those kinds of situations can be very profitable. But talk about the different owners and what the different kind of owners are looking for.
Yeah. So, yeah, good question. So right now there are probably over 7,500 private equity companies, and a lot of people, they've heard that term, but they don't really understand what it means. Is basically these funds that are buying private companies. That's what they're doing. Instead of buying, Apple computer stock on the public market, they're buying private companies that have been family run so they are by far the biggest buyer right now for us. I mean, I would say over 50% of the companies we sell now are sold to a private equity, fund. We may be selling to the private equity company's trucking company that they funded, or HVAC company, but these are private equity HVAC companies. You've heard the term roll up consolidating. They're buying pest control companies, HVAC, roofing, electrical contractors. And so they're very aggressive. They have, in some cases, billions of dollars to invest, and they get theses and themes that, hey, we want to buy manufacturing, or we want to buy healthcare companies, and they go and acquire. They can be very good buyers, and they can be very bad buyers. I mean, they can bring in incredible experience and capital, and run the business very well. And I can also say I've seen private equity come in and buy it, and they don't care about the people, and all they want to do is build it and sell it in 3 years. And guess what? A lot of our sellers, don't want that. They don't want their companies ruined. So they can be good or bad buyers. We've seen a big influx of family offices. Family offices are typically billionaires that probably have made their money building a company and selling it, and they are investing their money or some of their money in private companies. And they can be very good buyers because they don't necessarily have to sell their, if they buy your company, they don't have to sell it in 3 years, which can be a mandate for some of these private equity funds. That may get a little technical, so feel free to, ask a follow-up on that. So family offices, private equity, then owner operators. Some guy is working at Jabil and knows manufacturing, doesn't want to travel the world anymore, in business. He's got some money and he wants to buy a local manufacturing company. He can go get a loan through the SBA program and buy, a nice size, business. And so those can be great buyers. They can also be bad buyers because they don't have the experience in buying a company, and it can take a long, long time, and they may never get it over the hump. So that's a little bit, competitors. Again, competitors can be really tricky. A lot of times we won't go to the competitors till we have some offers in hand, because we don't want to be exposed on the market to our competitors, because sometimes the competitors will, talk. Even though they've signed a confidentiality agreement, things get out in the marketplace. So typically we're going to want to have offers from other buyers, then bring the competitors in to see if they'll, pay more. So that's a little bit of a flavor. Then there's the internal management team. We have successfully done a lot of those, and most of them end up not getting done for valuation. The general manager's wife doesn't want him to sign on a personal guarantee. So you get into those dynamics. We talked about the other buyers like family members. That can be really tricky with the family dynamics.
Well, there's lots of people out there to buy. As you pointed out, it's not all about the money. It's about the culture that you're leaving behind and hope that you want to see continue. And I know from my personal standpoint, with having built up Provise Management Group, it's a legacy. You want to see it live on. You want to see it live past that generation and be successful. I once told my partners, as they have bought the business from me, I said, the greatest legacy you can give me is that when I'm my dad's age, and he was 93 at the time that I said that, Provise is still around. So
Yes.
Again, you're right. It's all about the motivation.
Well, yeah, you've got great experience on, okay, if we sold you to some other firm and they changed the name and they changed the culture, even though you got paid a lot, it wouldn't have, hit your legacy and culture that you have built.
Exactly. And also you got to worry about your people,
Right.
taking care of them. As you're going through the negotiations and you're talking with the owner, what have you seen the owners do to try to? I know they don't want to tell the employees everything all up front. I'm looking to sell the business. I'm looking to retire. Although most owners don't understand, the employees have already figured that out a long time ago, that you're ready to retire. But what kind of thing should the owner be thinking about in terms of incentivizing his team to or her team to stay?
Yeah, that's so kind of two issues. The incentive, a lot of times, our business owners are baby boomers. They're, up in age, and
Now be careful, Emery. You're touching awfully close to to me.
hey, well, I'm a baby boomer too, so I'm pointing a finger right back at myself. But and it's really critical to have the key management. It could be the general manager, the sales manager, the CFO, locked in. And sometimes they're given a success bonus. So the owner, brings one at a time. Hey, next couple of years, I'm going to sell. When I sell, I'm going to give you, a stay bonus or whatever. Some kind of remuneration for, the years that they have put in and success of selling the business. And then they're more aligned. And I have actually had employees, not on companies I've sold, but I've had employees come into my office saying, hey, I know the owner of my company is trying to sell and we're trying to buy it. And if they don't give us a good price, we're going across the street and set up a competitive business, and we don't have a non-compete. So not only do you want to be, treat your employees well, but also there's the negative side. You better be careful because, like in a lot of cases, these key employees may be running the business and key to the deal, because the private equity buyer or whoever buys them, they're really buying your team if you're leaving. So if you're retiring, they're buying your team. So they're golden handcuffs that you can put on in some of these incentive programs that, give them a bonus for the sale. So that's really important. If you can get an employment contract with a non-compete, I know non-competes are kind of going away, but there are things that you can put in those agreements that, can help lock them in.
So that's a great entree into this to the next question. What are some of the biggest mistakes that a business owner can make as they're thinking about selling their business?
Well, I'd say the number one. Well, there are a couple number ones. Yeah,
Okay.
because it really depends. But I'd say the most of it is the valuation. That's one of the reasons we start there, because there's no reason to go try to sell it and they're like, I think my company's worth 20 million, and really they're way out of, that's such a premium for that type of business. So we always start there with the valuation, because it also gets to the motivation of the seller. Because usually if they're going to get 10, $20 million, there's not a whole lot of difference 15 million to 20 million is going to make in their life. I mean, they probably already have their house and, lots of retirement, and this is good. So, but it helps kind of just make sure they really are motivated to sell. We see a lot of sellers self-sabotage deals, and they could never even probably admit that, but they're personally not ready to sell, and they're self-destructing in the deal during the process. And I mean, you can talk to any M&A lawyer, CPA that does a lot of this like we do, and you can just see it. And just give you an example. We had 10 offers for this one seller, and he kept saying, no, I don't like that guy. Number 2 offer, I don't like that offer. Number 3. And finally, I'm like, Joe, are you wrestling with these letter of intents, or are you wrestling with yourself? So a lot of it is they need to be prepared personally. Their business may be ready. Like right now, the economy's great and their business may be doing great, but if they aren't ready internally, they have to know what's next. Am I going to play golf? Am I going to go travel the world? Am I going to take care of my health? What is the motivation for selling? And I think that's one of the biggest ones. Another big mistake is not having their accounting in good order. And that almost goes across the board on our sellers of these companies.
Emery, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I wanted to make sure we got that into the podcast somewhere. You know, business owners can't just decide today to sell tomorrow. They gotta tune everything up. They got to look at their balance sheet and get it cleaned up. They got to look at their P&L, okay, what expenses do I have in there that if I eliminated, might make my business worth more, like my lightning tickets or my Bucks tickets or my race tickets, um, to name a few things that
Right.
and have buried in the corporation somewhere. So to really look for opportunities to eliminate those expenses for a couple of years, making the earnings, the EBITDA, even higher to give a greater multiple. And if you're if you're paying $80,000 a year to go see the Lightning play because you're in the Loge, and you take a multiple on that of, let's say, 12 times, that's another $1 million for your business just by moving that expense over to your personal side as opposed to running it through the company those last couple of years.
Absolutely.
So, Emery, what are the advisors? You touched on this briefly at the beginning of the podcast, but what are the advisors does a business owner need in order to get the best outcome? And how do business owners react to having to pay all of those advisors, yourself included?
Yeah. Great question. So we call it a deal team, and this is the trusted advisors, and we're usually like we come in with the merger and acquisition lawyer. Well, a lot of times the lawyer will have a relationship for years and years, but we're the hired guns. We usually come in, they don't know us. We are, our mission is to get the business sold. But I would start with someone like you, Ray, is someone that can help on the financial planning and wealth planning, because you've probably known and probably become friends. They're definitely a client, but also friends over the years, and they trust someone like you. Hey, you're managing my money. I'm really thinking, hey, 2025 is the year I want to sell my business. I get these letters and calls every single day, and they think it's going to be so easy because they get all these, phishing letters and marketing letters. And then they talk to them and they go, oh, it's not going to be as easy as I think. So starting with the financial plan, because they need to know, okay, if I sell my company for this, that I've got retirement covered or mostly covered. So they need to understand where they are personally. They need a good CPA that can help them with the tax, ramifications of a sale. Generally, we're brought in, to talk about how we can sell their company, because hiring a firm like ours, they ought to get significantly more money because we're going to bring in a lot more buyers, with a lot more money, not just the two or three firms that they got letters from. So we're going to bring in multiple buyers, and it can be 50% more. I mean, I've had people that have walked in my office with 4 written letter of intents, and I've gotten one guy $12 more million. And he
And
was like, yeah,
Emery, let me speak to that, because every business owner that we have as clients that is going to sell their business and work with a firm like yours, I tell them, tell the firm, I want X, and I'll pay your normal fee to get me X, because that's
right.
the number that'll make me happy. That'll make my retirement secure. That'll allow me to leave a great legacy to the kids and to the grandkids. But then tell the firm that whatever the delta is above X, that you'll
Right.
get an even bigger fee, because that'll incentivize you to go get that extra money you were just talking.
Absolutely. Well, and it makes sure, right, that you're aligned with that business owner, right? Because if you say, I'm not, are they just trying to get a deal done, or are they trying to hit what that business owner wants? So I like that strategy, and we've done that on many occasions with our business owners. So
Uh,
anyway,
Finish up. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. So we have wealth management is number one. I'd start there. Then there's the intermediary, like myself, having a good accountant, and we bring in tax specialists. So a lot of times they're like, this is my CPA, but they just do the taxes of the corporation and personal taxes, but they may not have the expertise to really save them money in a business transaction. So there possibility we may add to that specialty. with another resource. And we talked about the M&A attorney. It's really, really important to have a deal attorney. Sometimes we get litigators, and those have I've only had a few of those, but they treat it as a battle, and it's generally an ugly situation. But you really need an M&A attorney that specializes in doing deals. And if you're doing healthcare M&A, you absolutely need a healthcare M&A attorney. There's a lot of nuances in that.
Yep, I'll bet. So let's go from the business side to the personal side, and we deal a lot with this with the business owners. You said they got to have a plan, and so how do they have to from your perspective? How do they have to prep themselves personally for the sale of their business? And before you answer that, just want to share with you that as I have sold off the stock in my company to my younger partners. It's kind of hard to let them start making the decisions that you've been used to kind
Right.
of making all the way along. And it's hard to pass that baton when you're still around. So I mean that's one thing that we talk a lot about with our clients. But what are some other things that I should be doing as a person who's selling their business to think about me and my family in the sale of the business?
Yeah, some business owners come in, they're well advised legally, financially, they have their advisors and they're part of Vistage and they've got their plan and they're buttoned up. That's very few of our clients. And most of them are they would never say they're struggling, and I wouldn't really, but they're kind of struggling with that. I'm a founder, I'm the biggest manufacturer of widgets. I'm the biggest advertising guy in Tampa, and they're facing mortality, and they're facing, is this enough money? And are they facing, am I going to play golf every day? They're really facing a lot of what's next, and they don't have the clarity of what's next. And it's really hard to say to somebody, you've got to go figure that out. But that's really the charge is, Joe, before you sell your business, you know, what are you going to do when we sell this business? Because a lot of them will go through the process and then they'll back out because they don't know what's next. A lot of them will sell and they'll figure it out as they go along. And I think that's probably more than others. Cause you have a couple of things. Some people want to sell and just like, as soon as I can transition out, I'm going in 6 months, 3 months. Okay, great. Others are like, I will stay and work a few years. I've had some people that say, I want to stay and work for as long as I can work after I sell the business. So it's, but that's clarity. They have clarity that they want to continue working or they want to leave and go spend time with the grandkids. But the personal thing, that's a challenge. It's a great question. I don't necessarily have a great answer for it because it's such an individual decision for that business owners, but we do talk to them about that.
Well, with a lot of the folks that we have worked with, many of them have said they'll stay with the business for a couple of years, and I tell them all, I said, plan to be there for 24 months, but figure to be gone in 10 to 12. And they all say, well, what do you mean? I said, trust me, you won't want to give up the direction you were taking the business and move in this new direction that the new owners want to move. You'll get frustrated. They'll get frustrated, and they'll pay out your contract for the 2 years, but they'll let you go play golf early and go fishing a little more often than you were before.
Yeah, no, that happened to me. I sold my 3 companies and I agreed to a year transition. And for the first 6 months, I was the golden child and I was smart. 6 months in a day, I was an idiot. And it just like it very quickly. Like you said earlier, I'm not making the decisions anymore. And you're so used to making all the decisions and having the control. It's very different for an entrepreneur to lose that.
It sure is. Well, Emery, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. I know Aberdeen Advisors here in the Tampa Bay area has a great reputation. My congratulations to you and your team to what you've built up and all the great work that you've done to help numerous business owners over the years. I'm still astounded at your 83% success rate in completing transactions. So congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Good to be
You
with
bet.
you. Bye.
So once again, this is another episode of Up Your Assets, and we hope that as business owners, this has been helpful to you as if you're thinking about developing a plan to sell your business. And it's important to have a plan in selling the business. As I said earlier, you don't want to just wake up one day and say, "I want to sell it tomorrow." So as you think about this, if there's any way that you need help, you should be calling that financial advisor, that CPA, that attorney, that advisor like Aberdeen Advisors, and getting your business sold. Although it's an expensive proposition, at the end of the day, you're likely to get more money with a team around you, with that village around you, than you are without. In the meantime, this is all for now. So go out there and up your assets.